The boys have experienced a lot of trauma over the years. Their mother's addiction, her leaving their father.
Okay, show's over. Thank you.
Simon Baker, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, David.
Now, Trent Dalton's book, Boy Swallows Universe, was a big hit. For those who don't know it, I'm interested in how you would describe this story and what drew you to being part of turning this novel into something on screen.
It's a rollicking tale about a young boy in difficult circumstances, set in the 80s in Brisbane, which makes it kind of very interesting and nostalgic for a lot of people. And really, I think at its core, it's a very optimistic story about finding family and seeing the good in even bad situations and bad circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's full.
Just on that,
it's full of hope and optimism.
Yeah, I mean, there are flawed characters, flawed figures all around this boy as he's trying to find his way between right and wrong. Your character is the father, who is a bit of a flawed character. He's absent from the boy's life for many years. He's an alcoholic, agoraphobic, a book hoarder, but he also has these endearing qualities. He clearly loves his boys, and you bring a real tenderness to the role as well. Tell me about how you approach this character.
Well, I think this particular character, if you talk to Trent Dalton about it, who wrote the book, he's one of the characters that is probably closest to a real life character in his life. So it's drawn a lot from Trent's own father. So I felt a strong sense of responsibility to Trent. So we talked a fair bit. That was part of the approach. And obviously, you know, I know these kind of characters. I've met these characters. I've experienced them in my life. And with any kind of a role, I take a bit of a bowerbird approach. You know, some of it comes from within you. Some of it comes from your own experiences or people that you know. And then there's a lot of imagination. But I think, in essence, the character is as flawed as he is because I think he's probably too sensitive a person for that particular time period, and the circumstances that he finds himself in.
What happened?
Oh, I was just trying to get a drink.
Maybe you should go down to the pub next time.
Well, maybe you should stop spending my child support on paints and shit.
Maybe you should go and take us to see our mum.
It's called agoraphobia, you like? Agoraphobia. Fear of public places with many people in them, as defined by the Oxford Dictionary.
Lately, you have been diving into a lot of Australian stories by some of our celebrated writers. I mean, Trent Dalton and Boy Swallows Universe, but you also directed and starred in Tim Winton's Breath. There was Limbo last year, and I understand you're also involved in an adaptation of a Richard Flanagan story as well at the moment. Why? Tell us about why you're being drawn to these very Australian stories at the moment.
Well, I'm a product of this country. I feel this place in my bones, and I feel I felt a necessary pull to come back here. I lived abroad for 20-something years, and I had a great experience, and it's not to say I won't go abroad again for various projects, but I did feel a strong pull in my heart to come back here and tell stories that, or be involved in stories and play characters that are a part of my DNA, like a part of the fabric of who I am, and from my formative years all the way through, and that just felt like the right thing to do, and it feels like it's sort of part of a cycle of my own evolution as as an artist, I guess.
Well, this show's on Netflix. You have in the past been quite vocal, part of a campaign to encourage or require the streaming platforms like Netflix to produce more Australian content. The government is now promising to do that, introducing new rules from July this year. What would you like to see in that regard now?
When Netflix came along, I would watch French shows. I could travel all around the world with my early subscription to Netflix, and when I came back to Australia from the States, I was really sort of hopeful that our content, our Australian films and television, could extend, and people that lived in France could watch Australian shows, and so I'm really grateful for them getting behind this particular project, and I'm going to be really curious to see how this is going to go internationally, because it has a very fresh and exciting feel to it, the story, and it has this beautiful optimism that Trent Dalton carries with him everywhere he goes, and it's really inspiring to see. Suburban Brisbane in the 80s on being released globally to the world, and I'm excited to see how it does.
And just on that, as someone who has been involved in projects around the world, predominantly the US and here in Australia, what makes these Australian stories so unique? What makes them different?
A great part about these stories is that they are unique, and they do open a window to what's going on within this country, and I think that's a point that can be a point of pride culturally for us as a nation, and we can move away from potentially move away from sort of different sort of linear stereotypes. People will still in America say, put another shrimp on the Barbie. I mean, how old is that? Where the hell are you? How old is, we're evolving, we're moving as rapidly as the rest of the world moves in this sort of new age. And I think the more that we can get our voices and our stories out into the world, I think the better it is for us as Australians and our own self-esteem and our sense of pride in our country and our country's own personal struggles.
Well, Simon Baker, congratulations on this series, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David. Cheers.